All right, yes. Good morning. So yesterday we started like application architecture diagram. We discussed what is meant by application architecture diagram and what are the prerequisites for doing PT, right? Importance of performance testing, prerequisites for performance testing, and application architecture diagram. So all these concepts are covered yesterday, and I have uploaded the recorded session as well, right? As a public video, guys. So those who missed yesterday's session, please go through that. Okay, please go through that yesterday's session. So this is yesterday's session, July 19th, isn't it? So I'm sorry. This is LoadRunner session. Hold on. Importance of PT, yes. Importance of performance testing, prerequisites for performance testing. And I also explained application architecture diagram. What is meant by application architecture diagram? And what is important, right? Now, for today, let's understand two-tier versus three-tier architecture, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And if time permits, I will also cover performance testing lifecycle. Clear this? So, as we are discussing application architecture, let's complete this. Let's understand what is two-tier architecture and what is three-tier architecture. Okay. You remember yesterday we discussed, yesterday or one of the previous session, we, how did you join Zoom meeting, guys? All of you? Did you install Zoom meeting on your machine or you are joining from a browser?
Installed on a machine.
Installed in desktop.
Perfect. Right. So install Zoom meeting on your machine and you are joining through that desktop client, isn't it? This is called as Zoom client, right? So if you install a software on your system, right, on your desktop, right, that falls under desktop application, that is called as a desktop application, right? Or that falls under this two-tier architecture. On the other side, on the opposite side, suppose if you are joining Zoom meeting from a browser like this, you go to zoom.us and you click on this join, right? And you can join Zoom meeting from here as well without installing Zoom on your system. Without installing Zoom meeting on your system, you can join a Zoom meeting from the browser as well. So, and from a browser. So this falls under this three-tier architecture. Whenever you are using some browser like IE or Chrome or Firefox, and you are accessing any application, right? So that falls under three-tier architecture. Is it clear, guys? Right? And hold on. So two-tier application, and an important question is there here. Interview question is there here. What is the difference between thick client and thin client applications? Or did you work on any thin client application? Okay. I think, what is this? 2023 batch.
I think this is a different
one. Yes.
This is a July batch.
Yeah. Thin client versus thick client. Okay. So what is meant by thin client? Thin client means any browser-based application, right? Any browser-based application is called as a thin client. Okay. Whereas thick client means any desktop application. Any desktop application is called as a thick client application. What do you mean by desktop application? Something you install on your machine, that is called as a desktop application. And this falls under two-tier architecture. Two-tier, and this falls under three-tier architecture. Clear, guys? Is it clear, guys?
Yes, Paul.
And why it is called as thick client and why is it called as thin client? If you want to use any desktop application, right? So you will be installing that application on your system and it will consume a lot of disk space, CPU and memory, isn't it? It will consume its own, it will consume some disk space. It will consume CPU and memory as well. right? Whereas, thin client applications means, browser-based applications are called as thin client because you don't install anything for specifically for that application, right? For example, if you are accessing Amazon.com or Amazon.in, right? So you are not installing anything particularly for that, isn't it? You're just using an existing browser, isn't it? So it consumes less CPU and less memory for itself. So that's why it is called as a thin client. Is it clear, guys? Whether it is Amazon.in or IRCDC or Flipkart, right? Or Big Basket, right? So all the browser-based applications are called as thin client applications because you don't install anything specifically for that. Is it clear, guys? Understood, guys?
Yes, Pawan.
Yes, please respond.
Yes, Pawan.
Okay. And that client, see, we call these as applications as client. So this is called as, for example, in this instance, this is called as Zoom client. Clear, guys? This is called as Zoom client. Or else if you install Slack. How many of you heard about Slack? So Slack is something like your Microsoft Teams, etc. So which is used in some companies for official communication. Clear, guys? Slack,
Yes, Pawan.
Teams, right? All these are desktop applications. Clear, guys? And these are called as clients. These are called as, desktop clients. Okay. Now, yeah. So on the other side, when you are using any 3D application architecture like or a web browser-based application, right? You may be using some browser like IE or Chrome or Firefox, right? And they will communicate with the web server, application server, web or application server, and then that will interact with the database server. And the application server can be IAS or Apache or Nginx, etc. with ASP.NET Rally. So basically this this layer will be developed using Java or something, Java or .NET or any other programming language. Clear, guys? So we'll discuss, we'll understand like in the next slide, I will explain what is a web server, what is app server, what is DB server. I think I already explained yesterday, right? What is web server, what is app server, and what is DB server? Can someone explain what is web server? Or why it is called as presentation tier?
Yes, Pawan. When we open a web page or website, so the content we see on the UI comes from web server. The
Right.
business logic, everything. So if it's a banking application, fund transfer like that, or anything is there, then that business logic will be written in app server. So and
Business
SQL,
logic will be running in the app server.
yeah, running in the
Right?
app server.
Written in some programming language like Java, .NET, or Python.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and so from DB, this app server connects using connects DB using the SQL queries. So it fetches data and it calculates in the app server. So
Right.
and that will be given to web server and that will be visible on the UI.
Web server will present it to the user. That's why it is called as presentation tier, right? And all the application logic will be processed in app server. That's why this is called as logic tier or application tier. Okay. And all your data, your application related data will be stored in this database layer. Will be stored, right? So that's why it is called as persistence tier. Clear, guys? So this is a traditional 3-tier architecture, and this is the most common architecture and widely deployed architecture. Most common architecture and widely deployed architecture, right? And gold standard developed as a result of web revolution and designed primarily for HTML web browsers, not mobile apps. Okay. Remember this architecture diagram. The reason is whenever you are attending an interview, right? They will ask you to explain your current application architecture, or they will ask you to explain your current application. Can you tell me something about your current application or current project that you are working on? So you need to start with the application architecture diagram. You need to explain a diagram like this, your application architecture like this, and then what is your application, what does your application does, and all you should, explain them.
Hey, let me.
So it's a very important to understand what is your application architecture. Clear, guys? Now
So,
let's see.
Pawan, one second.
Yes.
So if it's a mobile app, we won't have a web server. Directly it contacts application server, right? Mobile apps.
Yeah, we'll discuss that. We'll discuss that in the coming sessions.
Okay.
Okay, I'll try to get some mobile application architecture and we'll discuss that. All right. Yeah. Now, so now let's understand what is this presentation layer made up of, what is this logic layer made up of, and what is this data layer made up of, right? And this is new entire architecture because nowadays, see, this is a web browser and the layout will be something like this, isn't it? The layout of a web server will be, or sorry, a browser will be looking something like this, right? And nowadays we have mobile browsers, right? Isn't it? So a lot of users are accessing the application through mobile browsers as well. And this is how the layout looks like, right?
Yes.
Right. So this
Yes,
is
sir.
new entire architecture. So as there are more than 3 layers, right? So they're calling it as entire. Now let's understand, what is this presentation layer made up of? What is this logic layer made up of? What is this database layer made up of? Or persistence tier made up of? So first of all, presentation layer may be developed using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Is it clearly visible or should I go to slides mode? The
Zoom in.
presentation layer is generally made up of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You need to understand what is HTML, what is the purpose of CSS, and what is the purpose of JavaScript. Because any application, you take any application like Amazon or Flipkart or any application, it will contain all the that typically that will be made up of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So let me quickly show you that. So hold on. Go to view source. It will be option called view source, view page source, and control U is the shortcut. Can you please go to Amazon.in or any website that you like or any website that you frequently use? Go to any website, okay, and use control U, right? That will open the source code of that website, isn't it? So you go to any website and use control U, which will open the source code of any website. You see over here, view source, isn't it? And you can see over here. So this is the source code of Apple website. Clear, guys? And this is the source code of Amazon website. And you see over here in the very first line, you see something called doc type HTML, means document type. Doc type means nothing but document type. You see some HTML code over here, right? So HTML language is equal to en-in. What is en-in? What it could be?
English.
English, Indian version.
Right. En is the language code, in is country code, right? That is language is Indian English. And you see something called, JavaScript over here. Script type is equal to text or JavaScript, isn't it?
Yes.
And let us search for CSS. Let's see where is CSS, if CSS is there or not. You see a lot of CSS files over here, .css, isn't it? There are 64 occurrences, observe here. So this is how you can search. Once you open the source code, right, use Control F and you will get a search window and you can search anything over here. Suppose if you want to see how many JavaScript files are there. You see over here, JavaScript occurrence of this string is 61. There are 61 occurrences of this string. Clear, guys? So, or if you type .js, there are 88 occurrences. Means that JavaScript is called, many JavaScript files are called around 88 times. Understood, guys? And if you want to see what are those, you can use this up arrow and down arrow. Right? Can you please do this, guys, everyone? Open a new tab in your browser and go to any website that you use frequently, IRCDC or Redbus or any website that you use frequently. And use Control U, or else right click and view page source. And you see, HTML, the very first line, you will see HTML, isn't it? And what is HTML, guys? What does HTML stands for?
Hypertext markup language.
Hypertext markup language.
Right. So what is hypertext markup language? So that is where your web pages are developed. That is the language in which your web pages are developed. Now, what is CSS? What does CSS stand for?
Cascading style sheets.
Right. And what is the purpose of CSS?
For designing,
You can feel that
designing for the websites.
Is that
for color code,
Color coding.
only
look
color
and-
coding?
look and feel also.
Look and feel, yeah. So basically, style sheet CSS files are used to define the layout of the page. What is meant by layout of the page? Layout of the web page. Let me keep it layout of the page. So what is meant by layout? Right? Suppose if you take, let's take Amazon example. So on Amazon web page, always, the logo will be displayed on the top left, right? So you refer your screen portion like this. This is top left portion, right? And on the cart symbol will be displayed on the top right, and the search button should be displayed in the top middle, isn't it? So this is all this layout will be defined in the CSS file. All the structure of the page will be defined in the CSS file or in the CSS code. Clear, guys? And so the text of the font of the text or the size of the text all will be displayed in the HTML language, isn't it? Yes or no, guys? So if you see you can see the code, HTML code of any page. So let's have a look at the HTML code, guys. So this is where HTML tag starts, and you see some style sheets are there, bundle.css. Inside, inside HTML, there are some CSS files. And now that HTML code will contain the layout of will define the layout of the page. Clear, guys? And what is the purpose of JavaScript? Let me go to the class notes. What is the purpose of this JavaScript? JavaScript will be mainly used for client-side validations. Client-side validations, calendar, right? Suppose, the website displays the calendar. That calendar code will be, developed using JavaScript and defined in the JavaScript code, using JavaScript code, right? So what is meant by client-side validation? So to understand that, so very important, guys, what is meant by client-side validation, right? So sometimes, you'll get some, okay, we'll discuss that later on. So first, let me explain what is client-side validation. Let's go to Gmail example, right? And let's say, you are supposed to enter your email ID or phone number here, isn't it? You are supposed to enter your email or phone number, right? Suppose this is my valid email ID. This is my email ID. So if you enter a valid Gmail address and click next, it should go to the next page and it should prompt for password, isn't it? But what if you don't enter a valid Gmail address and you enter some junk characters like this? What happens now?
It should throw a message.
Click next, right? It will not go to the next page. So instead of that, it is displaying some error message, right? Could not find your Google account, isn't it?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so this request actually need not go to the server. This request need not go to the server, Gmail server. Instead of that, it will validate on the browser itself. On the browser side itself, it will validate. These validations will be done on the browser side itself, whether it is a valid Gmail address or not, right? This is called as client-side validation. Suppose when you are filling your, Naukri website, or you are registering at a website, you are registering with some website, and there will be some conditions like, right? Password should contain minimum 8 characters and one uppercase, one number, etc., etc. Suppose if you don't give that, if you don't follow that instructions, right? If you don't follow those instructions, so it will display some error message immediately saying that, let's do one thing. Let us see some website where we can see the client-side validation. Website example for learning Linux commands. Okay. I think I gave you, did I explain this? Did I mention this website, guys, before?
Yes, from.
Right. Suppose
Yes.
if you are, if you want to register on this website, webinar.org, basically, you can practice any Linux commands without installing any operating system, right? This is a website where you can practice any Linux command, and you are trying to register over here, right? And suppose you enter some username, I'll give any username, and suppose you enter some email address. I'm not sure whether this will have a client-side validation or not. We recommend either Firefox or Chrome. Okay, let me try. So instead of, at the rate, I give some hash symbol, right? Instead of. Oh, okay. This is not doing dynamically, guys. So let's take some other website. Any other website, guys? Good example. Observe here. Suppose if I enter, some username, okay, and if I go to the next field, right, immediately it is showing that username not a, it is not available, right? Or is it a client-side violation? I think no, because it
No
doesn't
power.
browser
No,
can
it
do that on
checking in
the,
the DB.
yeah, it should check in the DB. This is not a good example for client-side validation, right? So let's, but password, it is a client-side validation. Observe here. It does client-side validation for password. Let's say, for example, I enter all numbers, right? Observe here. So this, it is immediately showing that password is invalid, right? It need not go to this request, need not go to the IRCTC database, right? Because minimum 8 characters are required and maximum 15 characters. Password must contain at least one small and one capital alphabet and numeric digit. So this is a good example for client-side validation. This password field, guys, not username, because username it should check with the database, because it doesn't know whether this user ID is available or not, right? For that it will, it has to check with the database. However, if you are, regarding this, password will have certain rules, like it should be minimum 8 characters, right? Suppose if you enter only 3 characters and move to the next line, it will immediately display some error message, right? So this is a good example for client-side validation, and this code will be there in Java, will be written in JavaScript file. JavaScript, the purpose of Java, this is one of the purposes of JavaScript. Clear, guys? Checking the password, guys, not this one. Username, it doesn't, so this can't be done on the browser side. It will check with the database whether this username is available or not. Understood, guys? But regarding this password validation, right? Or you are entering mobile number. Suppose you are trying to enter some characters in that, those kind of validations will be done on the browser side itself. Browser side is nothing but, client side is nothing but browser side. On the browser itself, that will be done. And how that will be done is, there will be some code written in JavaScript, which will be loaded along with this page. When you load this page, right, the JavaScript also will be loaded on the browser, and those validations will happen on the browser side itself. Is it clear, guys, what is meant by client-side validation and what is the purpose of JavaScript? Or, sometimes, we'll have calendar get displayed, right? Suppose you are booking a ticket and, you want to enter the departure and arrival date, right? Where it displays, application displays some calendar, isn't it? So this calendar code also will be written using JavaScript. Understood, guys? Guys, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Right? So now this is the purpose of each, in this presentation tier, right? This is the purpose of each of this HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay. Now, so that is about presentation layer. Now, if we move to the logic layer, or where your application code resides, application code will be running, right? So that application code will be written in any programming language like Java or Python or PHP or .NET or Rails, right? So it can contain any, so that, the logic layer or the application layer tier will be developed in any programming language like this. And the third layer, that is persistence layer or database tier, will be using any of these databases like MySQL or Microsoft SQL or PostgreSQL, right? Or Oracle database, etc. Clear, guys? So these are the popular databases that you have. MySQL. MySQL is an open source database. Please remember this. MySQL is an open source database. And all these are, other than that, these are licensed databases. Microsoft SQL, Oracle are licensed database. I think Postgres is also open source. So database layer will be developed using any of these databases, right? So this is about N-tier architecture, or this is the these are the details about each layer. Clear, guys? Is it clear, guys? What does this, a web server, this presentation layer will be made up of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. This application layer will be made up of any programming language like Java, Python, or PHP, etc. Database layer will be composed of any database like either any open source database like MySQL or licensed database like Microsoft SQL, Oracle, etc. Shall I move to the next slide? Or any queries here? Yes, please make it fast. Any queries? The reason why we are discussing this is we may have some performance issues on the front end as well. We may have some front end performance issues as well, or browser side performance issues. Okay, so you should know sometimes what happens is the JavaScript files, may be taking more time when you are loading any page like apple.com or any website, right? There may be some performance issues because of the JavaScript file. So you should know first what is the purpose of JavaScript. All right. Sometimes, there may be some browser side performance issues due to JavaScript files. Right. There are certain rules, that I'll show you something. So any browser consists of something called developer tools. Okay. There will be something called developer tools. If you click F12, function F12 on your keyboard, you'll get something called developer tools. Did I introduce these developer tools before?
Yes.
No, sir.
Okay.
No.
So in developer tools, there will be something called Lighthouse tab. Okay. There will be something called Lighthouse tab. And if you click on analyze page load for apple.com, we are doing for apple.com. Developer tools is a wonderful tool that everyone should know. I mean, every software engineer should know. Developer or someone into testing, everyone should know this. Whether you are into manual testing or automation or performance testing or security testing, right? Everyone should be aware of these developer tools. Should be able to effectively use these developer tools. Now, these are the tabs that performance test engineers use. One is network tab, the other one is Lighthouse tab. As a performance test engineer, we will be using this network tab and Lighthouse tab. Developers will be mostly using this elements tab, okay, and the console tab. Clear this? Now observe here. It is showing the performance score of this application, of this website. What is the performance score of this website? It's only 49 out of 100. Right? That means it is poor performance. Clear this? And on what factors does this determine the score is? These are the different factors. FCP, LCP, CLS, cumulative layout shift, speed index, etc. Right? That means there is a lot of scope for performance optimization. Basically, performance of this website can be improved a lot. Right? And regarding SEO, the score is 90. SEO stands for search engine optimization. And regarding the best practices, yes, again the score is 99. And also it also gives you what is the performance score from a browser perspective as well as from mobile browser perspective, web browser and mobile browser as well. Somewhere it should show that mobile performance score as well as performance score. And you can see what is on what basis it gives that score, that performance scoring. How does it do? It's not showing on the browser side, right? Whether it is on browser side or mobile. I think this is mobile layout. Okay, because layout is something like this. And observe here, and you see this, see, observe here, reduce unused CSS, reduce unused JavaScript, right? And these are so what are these numbers? Observe here. If these are the issues or opportunities where you can improve the performance score, and if you take care of this, reduce unused CSS, the response time will decrease by 0.6 seconds. Or if you defer the off-screen images, the response time will be improved by 8 seconds. Right? If you enabled the text compression, what is meant by compression?
Decreasing the size.
Compression means compressing the size, right? So,
Size of any file.
right. So let me explain. So whenever you send a request to the server, right, and you got some response from the server. isn't it? See, this is a request that you sent to the server from browser, and this is the response that you got from the server. Which one is response? We call this page as the HTTP or HTTPS response, isn't it? Now, this response will be sent from server to browser in a compressed format. Understood, guys? The response will be sent from server to browser in a compressed format. And once we receive the response, right, that, your browser will uncompress that, unzip that, and then it will display the content, right? By enabling the text compression, if we enable the text, so basically compression will be used mostly for images. But if compression is used for, text as well, the text content as well, it will give you a saving of 1.65 seconds. That's what this estimated savings means. That's what this section means. Understood, guys? And if you serve the images in next gen formats, the latest formats, it will have a massive saving of 7.35 seconds. The response time will improve by 7.35 seconds, it seems, by serving the images in the next gen formats. That means the latest formats of images. What are the image formats? What are the different image formats that we have, guys?
JPG.
JPG,
Yeah, there are a lot
PNG.
of image formats, right? So PNG, JPG, etc. Let me write it down here, right? JPG, PNG, yes, BMP, GIF. These are old formats, right? Nowadays we have a lot of next gen formats means SVEG. That is one image format, right? I think SVEG is one latest image format. What is SVG? Yes, SVG image or SVG in HTML. So this is a language for describing 2D graphics in XML. So this is one image format. Clear, guys? So next gen format means latest format. Latest formats, if latest formats are used. So this is the potential saving for that by using that next gen format that you can save. So now see here, this is talking something about this JavaScript, CSS and all this, right? Reduce unused CSS, reduce unused JavaScript, right? So first of all, you should know what is JavaScript, what is CSS, what is the purpose of JavaScript, and what is the purpose of CSS file, isn't it? So that's the reason, I explained this, internal details of this presentation layer, logic layer, and database tier. Clear, guys? Shall we move to the next slide now? Or any questions here? And most of the applications that you test will be Java applications, right? Most of the web applications are developed in Java only, right? And almost 70 to 80% of the applications are developed in Java. And most of the applications that we will be doing performance testing will be Java applications. So if anyone is having basic Java knowledge, that will be added advantage for performance testing career. Basic Java knowledge. You need not write any Java code, but you should know, like, if you have basic Java knowledge, that will be definitely an added advantage for performance testing career. Any queries, guys? Otherwise, we will move to the next slide and we will discuss performance testing life cycle. We'll start performance testing life cycle because we have 5 more minutes, right? So I will give you a quick overview, high level overview on performance testing life cycle, right? These are some, performance testing fundamentals, guys. Fundamental concepts that you should know for performance testing career. And now let us understand what is performance testing life cycle. Next important interview question. Can you explain the performance testing life cycle? Right? Suppose, suppose any client or any, apple.com or IRCTC or Redbus, they want to do performance testing for their website, right? Any client or any business, right, or any website owner, they want to do performance testing for their website. So what are the steps in that? What does they do normally is, first, they float something called RFI. RFI stands for request for information. Request for information. And the next phase is RFP. Request for proposal or solution document. Proposal is nothing but solution document. Right? First, they will float something called RFI and they will ask for RFP. Okay, let's understand with some real life example. Suppose you want to buy an apartment. Let's assume that you want to buy an apartment or a house, right? What would you normally do, guys? If you want to buy an apartment or a house, what do you do normally? Let's say assume that you are in a metropolitan city.
Choose the location, allocate the budget.
Okay. Fix the budget. Yeah, choose location. Yes. Next. How do you approach the builders or someone?
Yeah.
You'll approach some known builders. If you know already, if you are aware of some builders, you'll approach the builders. Or else, if you don't know any builder,
Online.
suppose you went to a new city and you don't know any builder over there, then
Online we see for any contacts.
right. So you look for any online contracts or you post your requirement on some websites like Magic Bricks or 99 Acres or something, right? Yes or no?
Yes.
You'll go to some websites like this, magicbricks.com or 99 Acres or Common Floor. There are a lot of websites for that, right? Common Floor or 99acres.com. So are you aware of these websites or no? Suppose you went to a new city, you don't know any builder, right? You don't know whom to approach. You'll try to contact some mediators. Yes or no? Some real estate mediators. Isn't it, guys?
Yes, sir.
In your area. Or else you'll post your requirement on these websites like magicbricks.com or 99 Acres or Common Floor. Right? You post your requirement over there. Right? Then now you'll start getting responses from them. Yes or no? You'll start getting responses from them saying that, we have project in so-and-so location and so-and-so budget. Isn't it? In the same way, suppose if client want to do performance testing for their application, they will float something called RFI, where RFI stands for request for information, right? Request for information means in some websites, there will be some websites or some channels to post those requirements. Now, service-based companies which are looking for some business, right, which are looking out for some projects, they will respond to that RFI. And what does that RFI contain? RFI is the standard questionnaire, which will be containing some standard questions. It will be RFI will be a standard questionnaire, which will be having some 10 to 20 standard questions. Right? And, service-based companies respond to that standard questionnaire. And, they will the client will shortlist some responses and they will ask to submit the RFP, request for proposal or solution document, right? And then the next phases come. They will select, they will award the project to one of the service-based companies and then requirement gathering starts. So the next phases are requirement gathering, proof of concept, drafting a test plan, etc., etc. Suppose you posted a requirement on this Magic Bricks or these websites and you got some responses. Let's say you got some responses, right? And you'll ask them to share the brochure, right? Or they will share the brochure. Yes or no? The builder will share their brochure, their project brochure. Isn't it, guys? And then you'll select, based on your preference or based on your budget and preference, location preference, you shortlist them and you'll ask to give a quotation, right? Yes or no, guys? So this quotation is something like this RFP. Guys, are you with me?
Yes, Pawan.
Right? So you'll ask them the quotation to give a quotation for your your flat or house, isn't it? So this RFP is something like a quotation. Right? And like you may take quotation from multiple builders, but you'll go with any other, any one of those builders. Yes or no? There is no rule that you have to buy wherever you take quotation, you have to buy there, isn't it? So in the same way, client also gets RFP a solution document from different clients, and they will again evaluate those solutions, and they will award the project to one of the service-based companies. And once the project is once a service-based company got a project, then the remaining phases will be happening. So I'll stop it here. We have a hard stop here. I'll stop it here and we'll discuss this tomorrow. Okay. And I'll try to cover this performance testing life cycle, and we'll start the requirement gathering also. If time permits, I'll cover that tomorrow. Okay.